Under a sky heavy with the bruised hues of late autumn, Emma Collins moved steadily along the narrow mountain trail, each breath a visible puff in the crisp air. The forest around her was a tapestry of gold and burnt sienna, leaves crunching beneath her worn boots, the scent of damp earth lingering in the chill. She wrapped her coat tighter around her, feeling the weight of the baby growing inside her belly, a constant reminder of the new life soon to arrive, and the past she was desperate to leave behind. She had come here alone, driven by a need she couldn't quite name, perhaps peace, or a place untouched by the chaos of her life. Emma's hands rested protectively over her abdomen as she pushed forward, each step a small act of courage. The journey had been long, the roads winding and lonely, but the mountains called to her with a quiet promise, a sanctuary away from the noise and the hurt. Before we continue, make sure to like and subscribe to never miss a new video. And tell me, where are you watching this video from? I love seeing all different people come together for these stories. As the trail curved beneath towering pines, Emma's sharp eyes caught sight of something unexpected. A cabin nestled just beyond a thicket, its weathered wood darkened by years of wind and rain. The structure seemed almost hidden, as though the forest had grown around it protectively. Its small windows reflected the fading light, and a thin plume of smoke curled lazily from the stone chimney, a sign of life in this remote place. Curiosity tugged at Emma's heart as she approached. The cabin's worn porch creaked softly under her tentative steps. She paused, her gaze tracing the patterns of peeling paint and moss-covered shingles, wondering who might live here, or if it had been abandoned. Despite the chill, a strange warmth seemed to emanate from the building, as if it held stories waiting to be told. Emma's fingers brushed the cold metal of the doorknob, but the door refused to budge, locked tight. For a moment, she stood there, the quiet of the woods pressing in around her, feeling an unspoken invitation wrapped in the mystery of that locked door. She swallowed the lump in her throat, the weight of loneliness, the fear of what lay ahead, and stepped back into the fading light. Memories surfaced unbidden. The argument that shattered her marriage, the silent house she had left behind, the empty room waiting for a child she was about to bring into a world that suddenly felt uncertain. She was running from those memories, but the ache of them followed. A shadow stitched into the fabric of her thoughts. Yet here, in the midst of towering trees and whispering winds, Emma felt a flicker of something new, hope, maybe, or the possibility of beginning again. She looked back at the cabin one last time before setting down her pack on the forest floor. The sky darkened as the sun dipped below the ridges, and a cold breeze rustled the branches overhead, urging her onward. With no other shelter in sight, Emma decided to make camp near the cabin, her breath steadying as she arranged her scant belongings beside a fallen log. The forest around her was alive with the quiet sounds of evening, the chirp of crickets, the distant call of an owl, the rustle of leaves stirred by the wind. Alone, but not quite lonely, she settled onto the mossy ground, pulling her coat tighter around her and closing her eyes for a moment. Her mind raced with questions. Who had built this cabin, and why had it been left locked and silent in such a remote place? Was it a refuge once, or a trap? The baby inside her shifted softly, a gentle reminder of the future waiting just beyond the night. As darkness deepened, Emma reached into her coat pocket and pulled out a faded photograph, its edges curled and worn. It was of her mother, smiling softly, standing in front of a similar cabin, though Emma had never known where it was. The image stirred a long-buried connection, a thread linking her to something bigger than herself. Determined, Emma whispered into the night, "Maybe this is where I'm meant to be." The wind seemed to answer with a low sigh, as if the forest itself was listening. She lay back against the rough bark of the log, the stars beginning to prick the sky above, and let the silence cradle her fears. The journey ahead was uncertain, but for the first time in a long while, Emma felt the possibility of peace stirring in her chest. Tomorrow, she would try the door again. Tonight, she would rest, gathering strength for whatever lay beyond that locked cabin on the mountain trail. Dawn crept softly through the branches, casting pale light over the forest floor where Emma had spent the night. She stirred beneath her blanket, the chill of morning mingling with the warmth radiating from her belly. The memories of the previous day's discovery, the cabin nestled quietly beyond the trees, felt sharper now, as if the forest itself had imprinted the image onto her mind. Rising slowly, Emma stretched her arms, the baby shifting in response. She touched the worn photograph tucked inside her coat pocket, a faint smile ghosting her lips. Today would be different. There was something about that cabin, a pull she couldn't ignore, as though it held answers to questions she hadn't yet dared to ask. She approached the cabin once more, her boots sinking slightly into the damp earth. The morning mist clung to the wooden beams, softening the edges of the structure. Emma's hand reached out, fingers brushing against the cold metal of the doorknob. Her heart quickened, anticipation mingling with a fragile hope. She tried the door again, twisting the knob firmly, but the lock held fast. No movement. The cabin remained sealed, its secrets locked away, just beyond her reach. Emma stepped back, frustration flickering through her chest like a sudden flame. Why was this place calling to her so insistently, yet keeping her out? She circled the cabin, searching for another way inside. The windows, small and shuttered, revealed only shadows and dust within. An old rusty latch hung from the side gate, swaying slightly in the breeze. Everything about the cabin whispered stories untold, as if it had been waiting for someone, waiting for her. Emma's thoughts drifted to the tangled threads of her own life. The husband who disappeared without a word, the silence that followed, and the swelling loneliness that clung to her like a second skin. She pressed her palm to the weathered wood, feeling the rough grain beneath her fingertips. The cabin was a mystery, but also a refuge. Perhaps the sanctuary she'd been searching for. The day stretched long and slow as Emma settled herself beneath a towering pine nearby, the forest breathing around her in quiet rhythms. She took out the faded photograph once more, tracing the outline of her mother's gentle face. The cabin in that picture looked much like this one, isolated, worn, but alive with the essence of memory. Was it possible that this place was somehow connected to her family's past? Loneliness pressed in again, colder and sharper now. She hugged her knees to her chest, the baby kicking softly against her palm. The fear of solitude, of facing motherhood alone, threatened to undo the fragile calm she'd built. Yet beneath it all, the cabin seemed to hum with a silent strength, a promise of protection. As afternoon shadows lengthened, Emma's gaze fell upon the forest floor. Scattered leaves, broken twigs, and then something unusual. A small, hand-carved wooden box partially hidden beneath a pile of moss. Curious despite herself, she bent down and lifted it gently, the wood smooth and warm despite the cool air. Inside the box lay a folded piece of paper, yellowed with age. Emma unfolded it carefully, revealing a crudely drawn map of the surrounding woods. The lines traced a path from the cabin to a spot marked with an X, accompanied by a hastily scribbled note. For those who seek shelter, the way will open. Her breath caught. The message was cryptic, but it was an invitation, an offer of hope wrapped in mystery. Emma's heart pounded with a mix of excitement and caution. Was this map meant for her? Had someone once found refuge here and left clues for another woman in need? Determined now, Emma folded the map and tucked it into her coat. She settled back against the tree trunk, pulling her coat tighter around her swelling belly. The forest was alive with the soft rustle of leaves and distant birdsong. But beneath the natural chorus, she sensed a deeper current, something unseen yet palpable, like the pulse of the earth itself. Memories bubbled unbidden, the harsh words exchanged with her husband before he left, the nights spent crying alone in a cold apartment, the overwhelming fear of bringing a child into a fractured world. She closed her eyes, envisioning a different future, one where she could find strength and shelter, where the shadows no longer held her captive. Despite the chill, a strange warmth bloomed within her chest. The locked cabin was more than just a building. It was a symbol of resilience, a challenge and a refuge intertwined. Emma made a silent vow to herself, to uncover its secrets, to find the key that would open more than just the door. As twilight descended, the sky painted in streaks of lavender and rose. Emma gathered her things and returned to her campsite. The forest darkened around her, the trees casting long, protective shadows. She built a small fire, its crackling flames a comforting heartbeat in the growing night. Sitting close to the warmth, Emma pulled out the map once more, tracing the path with a trembling finger. The X marked a spot deep within the woods, somewhere she had yet to explore. The idea of venturing further both thrilled and terrified her. But she knew this was the next step, an act of courage born not just of desperation, but of hope. Her thoughts drifted again to the baby inside her, the fragile life depending on her strength. She whispered promises into the firelight, promises of safety and love, of new beginnings and unbroken chains. The cabin's locked door no longer felt like a barrier, but a threshold, a boundary between the life she was leaving and the one she was ready to claim. When the stars finally emerged, piercing the velvet sky, Emma lay back against her pack and looked upward. The vastness of the universe stretched before her, infinite and unknowable, yet somehow comforting in its constancy. Alone on this mountain trail, with the forest as her witness, she felt a quiet determination settle within. Tomorrow, she would follow the map. Tomorrow, the cabin's secrets might begin to unfold. For now, she closed her eyes, listening to the rhythm of the night, the whisper of wind through leaves, the distant hoot of an owl, and the steady beat of her own heart, strong and unyielding. Morning light filtered through the dense canopy as Emma stirred awake. The distant call of a woodpecker tapping rhythmically into the quiet. The fire had burned low overnight, leaving behind glowing embers that whispered promises of warmth to come. She stretched carefully, mindful of the baby's gentle movements beneath her ribs, and reached for the folded map she had tucked beside her pack the night before. The forest around her was still veiled in mist, the towering pines standing sentinel as if guarding the secrets she sought. Today, she told herself, would be the day she followed the path marked on the map. But first, there was the pressing matter of the cabin's locked door, the barrier that had kept her out since she arrived. Returning to the small clearing where the cabin stood, Emma approached with a mixture of determination and hesitation. The wooden structure looked weathered but sturdy, its darkened boards softened by moss and time. She reached out and tried the doorknob once more. It resisted, stubborn and unyielding. Her fingers lingered on the cold metal, searching for any hint of a way inside. Then, as if guided by some instinct, she glanced down and noticed a worn wooden bench resting beside the cabin's porch, half hidden beneath a tangle of ivy and fallen leaves. Something caught her eye. A small glint of metal taped beneath the bench's underside. Heart quickening, she crouched and carefully peeled back the faded masking tape, revealing an old, tarnished key. Her breath caught. The key was small, heavy in her palm, its surface rough from years of neglect, yet unmistakably real. It felt warm, as if it had waited just for her to find it. With trembling hands, Emma approached the door again. The key slid smoothly into the lock with a satisfying click, and the door creaked open to reveal a dim interior shrouded in dust and shadow. A faint scent of wood smoke and aged paper drifted out, mingling with the earthy aroma of the forest. Stepping inside, Emma's senses adjusted to the muted light filtering through grimy windows. The cabin was small but inviting. An old stone fireplace dominated one wall, its hearth cold but clean, while rough-hewn wooden shelves lined the opposite side, stacked with books and worn journals. The floorboards creaked softly beneath her feet, and the walls bore faint marks of time. Scratches, faded photographs pinned carefully in places, and the subtle imprint of lives once lived. She moved slowly, her fingers tracing the spines of the journals, their leather covers cracked and softened by age. Titles were embossed in faded gold. Reflections, Hope's Journey, The Keeper's Letters. Emma's heart swelled with a strange mixture of reverence and curiosity. Whoever had lived here had left behind pieces of themselves, stories waiting to be uncovered. A sudden chill swept through the room as a breeze slipped in through a cracked window. Emma closed the door firmly behind her and settled onto a worn wooden chair near the fireplace. She opened the nearest journal, its pages yellowed but intact, and began to read. The handwriting was delicate, flowing, and intimate. The entries spoke of a woman named Lila, who had lived in the cabin decades before. Her words revealed struggles with pregnancy, isolation, and abandonment. Echoes of Emma's own fears and pain. Lila wrote of moments of despair and fleeting hope, of nights spent whispering lullabies to an unborn child, and of mysterious visitors who came to offer comfort and guidance. As Emma read, she felt a thread weaving between their stories, connecting her to a lineage she had never known. The cabin seemed alive with echoes of laughter and tears, love and loss, resilience and renewal. Time slipped away unnoticed. The afternoon sun dipped lower, casting long shadows across the dusty floor. Emma closed the journal gently, a sense of peace settling over her. This cabin, once a place of solitude and hardship, now offered her a sanctuary, a space to heal and find strength. She explored further, uncovering a small wooden box tucked beneath a loose floorboard. Inside, she found letters bound with a faded red ribbon, each addressed to a keeper, a guardian of the cabin's legacy. The letters spoke of rituals, of passing down wisdom from one woman to the next, a secret sisterhood bound by shared pain and hope. Emma's fingers trembled as she read the final letter, which ended with a plea. To the one who finds this place, may you carry our stories forward and find the courage to embrace your own. The weight of those words settled upon her heart. She was no longer alone. The cabin was more than shelter. It was a living testament to endurance, a beacon for women like her who had faced darkness and still dared to hope. As evening shadows deepened outside, Emma stoked the dying embers of the fireplace, kindling a small flame that began to chase away the chill. She gathered blankets and settled in, feeling the presence of those who had come before her, their strength weaving through the room like a protective embrace. In that quiet space, with the baby stirring gently within her, Emma whispered a vow to herself: to honor this legacy, to find her own path through the shadows, and to let the cabin's warmth guide her forward. Outside, the forest stood silent yet alive, the locked cabin now open, a refuge waiting patiently for the stories yet to be told. The morning sun filtered through the cabin's dusty windows, casting soft, dappled light across the worn wooden floor. Emma sat curled in a creaky chair by the fireplace, an open journal resting on her lap. The air inside was thick with the scent of aged paper and cedar, a quiet testament to the years the cabin had stood watch over the forest. As she turned the fragile pages, the flowing script of the woman named Lila drew her deeper into a world both foreign and achingly familiar. Lila's words spilled across the paper in delicate loops and swirls, chronicling a life touched by fear, hope, and resilience. The journal revealed the struggles of a young woman carrying a child into uncertain times. Much like Emma herself, Lila wrote of nights spent wrapped in woolen blankets, listening to the whispers of the forest outside, feeling the weight of solitude settle upon her like a shroud. She spoke of abandonment, the sharp sting of loneliness, and the fragile hope that kept her moving forward. Emma's fingers traced the lines, feeling an intimate connection, as if Lila's story was a mirror reflecting her own fears and dreams. The pages told of visitors who came quietly in the night, women who bore gifts of wisdom, comfort, and healing. They left behind tokens, a sprig of lavender, a hand-carved talisman, the promise of sisterhood. Emma imagined these mysterious figures moving softly through the cabin's shadowed corners, their presence a lifeline for the women who had come before. As the hours passed, the cabin seemed to shift around her, the air growing warmer, the silence less oppressive. It was as if the walls themselves breathed with the stories Emma uncovered, embracing her as one of their own. The cabin was no longer just shelter. It was a sanctuary woven from the threads of countless lives and whispered prayers. Emma rose and moved to the shelf where the journals were stacked, each one a chapter in a tapestry of courage and survival. She pulled another volume from the collection, its cover worn but inviting. This journal belonged to a woman named Marion, Lila's successor, whose entries spoke of healing rituals passed down through generations. Marion's words detailed the use of herbs, chants, and quiet ceremonies designed to ease the pains of pregnancy and loss. She described the sacredness of the cabin itself, a place where the earth's energy converged, offering strength to those who sought refuge within its walls. The rituals were not mere superstition, but a legacy of care and connection, binding women across time and space. Emma felt a stirring within her, a yearning to partake in these ancient practices, to draw upon the wisdom left behind. She gathered dried herbs she found carefully stored in a wooden box, sage, lavender, and rosemary, each scent evoking a sense of calm and protection. Lighting a small bundle, she let the fragrant smoke curl through the cabin, carrying with it a silent prayer for herself and the child she carried. The afternoon light waned, and as dusk settled, Emma lit the fireplace again, its flickering flames casting dancing shadows upon the walls. She sat quietly, breathing deeply, letting the warmth seep into her bones. The cabin seemed to hum with life, a gentle pulse that matched her own heartbeat. Memories of her fractured family surfaced. The arguments, the quiet betrayals, the moments of love that had slipped through her fingers. Yet here, embraced by the legacy of Lila and Marion, Emma found a new narrative unfolding. She was part of something greater, a line of women who had faced darkness and emerged with strength. The cabin whispered its acceptance, its history weaving around her like a protective cloak. Emma opened her own journal, a blank book gifted to her by a kind stranger months ago, and began to write. Her words were tentative at first, hesitant confessions of pain and hope. But soon they flowed freely, joining the chorus of voices that filled the cabin's walls. Outside, the forest deepened into night, the stars piercing the velvet sky like scattered diamonds. Within the cabin, Emma felt the steady presence of those who had come before, their stories a beacon in the shadows. She closed her eyes and listened to the quiet rhythm of the woods, the distant call of an owl, the rustle of leaves stirred by a gentle breeze. In that sacred space, surrounded by history and hope, Emma allowed herself to believe in the possibility of healing. The cabin was no longer a locked door or a hidden place. It was a home, a refuge, and a testament to the resilience woven through generations of women who had walked the same path. As the fire flickered low, Emma whispered a vow to the silence, to carry forward the legacy of strength and compassion, to honor the women who had kept this sanctuary alive, and to find her own way through the trials ahead. The cabin's glow held steady against the dark, a quiet promise that she was not alone. The next morning, a gentle light filtered through the cabin's time-worn windows, casting soft patterns on the wooden floorboards. Emma woke with a lingering sense of belonging, the weight of the journals and memories settling within her like a quiet companion. She moved carefully, mindful of the baby's subtle kicks, and decided to explore the cabin more thoroughly, as if the walls themselves might hold further secrets waiting to be uncovered. Her footsteps echoed softly as she paced the small room, eyes scanning every corner, every crevice. A loose floorboard near the hearth caught her attention, a narrow gap barely visible beneath the faded rug. Heart quickening, she knelt and pried at the edge with trembling fingers. The board shifted, revealing a hidden trapdoor beneath, its surface worn and dust-laden. Emma's breath caught in her throat. The cabin had more to reveal, a hidden layer beneath the surface. She pulled the trapdoor open, revealing a narrow stairwell descending into shadow. The air that rose from below was cool and earthy, tinged with the scent of aged wood and forgotten memories. Guided by the soft light of her flashlight, Emma descended the creaking steps, feeling the weight of the cabin's history pressing gently around her. At the bottom, she found a small underground room, no larger than a modest cellar, its walls lined with rough stone and wooden shelves. Her eyes adjusted to the dimness, revealing an array of keepsakes carefully arranged on the shelves. Brittle letters tied with faded ribbons, sepia-toned photographs of women whose faces bore strength and sorrow in equal measure, and delicate trinkets. Lockets, carved wooden charms, a silver pendant shaped like a crescent moon. Emma lifted one photograph, a woman with steady eyes and a gentle smile, her hair pinned back, holding a baby swaddled in a hand-woven blanket. On the back, a name was scrawled in elegant script. Margaret, 1923. A sudden chill ran down Emma's spine. Margaret, her great-grandmother's name. The connection formed like a spark in the quiet room. This cabin, this secret chamber, was intertwined with her own family's story, threads of her ancestry woven deep into the fabric of this sanctuary. Emma's fingers trembled as she touched the locket beside the photograph. Its surface cool and smooth, engraved with a delicate symbol she recognized from her mother's necklace. A flood of memories washed over her. whispered tales from childhood about a strong woman who had vanished into the mountains, leaving behind a legacy wrapped in mystery. Now, it seemed, the truth was unfolding before her eyes. Among the letters, Emma found one addressed to her. Though the paper was aged and brittle, the handwriting was unmistakably her great-grandmother's. The letter spoke of the cabin as a refuge for women in times of hardship, a place where pain could be soothed and strength rekindled. Margaret wrote of a secret society bound by compassion and resilience, entrusted with preserving their wisdom across generations. Emma's heart pounded as she read the words, feeling the weight of responsibility settle upon her. The cabin was not merely a shelter. It was a legacy, entrusted to those who needed it most. She was part of that lineage now, a keeper of stories and strength. She lingered in the hidden room, tracing the edges of photographs, unfolding letters, and absorbing the quiet power of this underground sanctuary. Each artifact told a story of survival and hope, a testament to the women who had walked this path before her. Outside, the wind whispered through the trees, carrying the scent of earth and rain. Emma closed the trapdoor gently, a newfound resolve burning within her. She returned to the main cabin, clutching the locket tightly, the symbol of her family's enduring bond. Sitting by the fireplace, Emma allowed herself a moment of vulnerability. Tears slipped freely as she whispered thanks to Margaret and the women who had come before. The cabin was no longer a place of mystery. It was home, a sacred space where she could draw strength for the road ahead. As the afternoon sun waned, Emma carefully began organizing the letters and photographs, placing them in a box she found tucked beneath a shelf. She knew the stories needed to be preserved, passed forward as a beacon for those who would one day follow. The baby stirred within her, a gentle reminder of the future intertwined with the past. Emma traced a finger over the locket's engraving, feeling the steady rhythm of generations beating within her. The cabin had given her a gift beyond shelter, a connection, a purpose, and a lineage of women whose courage she now carried in her own heart. The days that followed unfolded with a quiet rhythm, the cabin's walls embracing Emma as she settled deeper into its legacy. The underground room, with its trove of letters and photographs, had become a sacred space, a portal to the past and a beacon for the future. Each morning, she awoke to the soft chorus of birdsong filtering through the trees and the gentle stirring of the baby within her, a living thread woven into the cabin's ancient tapestry. Emma began to explore the rituals hinted at in the letters, those quiet acts of healing and connection passed down through generations of women who had sought refuge here. She gathered herbs from the forest's edge, sage, lavender, rosemary, tucking them into bundles to burn in the cabin's hearth. The fragrant smoke curled upward, filling the room with a calming scent that seemed to settle the restless ache inside her. One afternoon, as sunlight dappled the cabin floor, Emma unfolded a delicate parchment from Marion's journal, detailing a ceremony meant to honor the strength of women carrying new life. The ritual was simple, yet profound. A circle of salt to cleanse, the lighting of candles to invite protection, and the whispering of blessings for safe passage through labor and motherhood. With reverence, Emma arranged the small circle near the fireplace, placing candles carefully within its bounds. She lit the first wick, the flame flickering and casting gentle shadows. As the smoke from the herbs drifted around her, she whispered the blessing softly, feeling the words settle into the air like an embrace. The cabin responded. The wood seemed to glow with warmth, the shadows receding as if the space itself welcomed the ceremony. Emma closed her eyes, breathing deeply, and felt a surge of peace wash over her. quiet strength rooted in the wisdom of those who had come before. Days blurred into one another as Emma practiced the rituals, each act a thread weaving her more tightly into the legacy of the cabin. She found comfort in the repetitive motions, crushing herbs between her fingers, tracing symbols in the air, offering silent prayers. The cabin's atmosphere shifted with each ceremony, growing warmer, more alive, as though the very walls were imbued with the healing energy she nurtured. Her nights were no longer haunted by fear and loneliness, but filled with dreams of women gathered in the cabin's glow. Lila, Marion, Margaret, and others, their faces serene and strong. They offered guidance through whispered words and gentle touches, their presence a balm for Emma's weary soul. One evening, as a storm gathered beyond the trees, Emma sat by the fireplace with Marion's journal open on her lap. The journal spoke of a circle of keepers, women bound by shared pain and hope, whose purpose was to protect the sanctuary and pass down its wisdom. Emma realized that she was not only a recipient of this legacy, but its guardian. The storm outside rumbled low, wind rattling the cabin's windows. Emma's hand rested lightly on her belly, feeling the baby's rhythmic movements. The rituals had brought more than calm. They had awakened a resilience within her, a growing confidence to face the unknown. She rose and moved to the window, watching as raindrops traced silver paths down the glass. The cabin stood firm against the tempest, a steadfast refuge nestled in the forest's embrace. Emma knew that when the time came, she would draw on this strength, on the power of the women who had walked before her. That night, wrapped in warm blankets, Emma lit a single candle and wrote in her own journal. Her words flowed freely, gratitude, hope, a promise to honor the legacy entrusted to her. She described the rituals, the herbs, the circle of salt, knowing that these practices would one day guide another woman in need. As sleep claimed her, the cabin seemed to hum softly, the heartbeat of generations pulsing through its timbers. Emma dreamed of the future. A daughter cradled in loving arms, stories shared beneath starlit skies, and the unbroken chain of women bound by courage and compassion. In the stillness before dawn, the cabin whispered its blessing, and Emma felt the quiet certainty that she was exactly where she was meant to be. The soft knock at the cabin door startled Emma from her reverie, the unexpected sound slicing through the quiet evening air. She hadn't anticipated visitors. Not here, not in this sanctuary carved from solitude and whispered memories. Her heart quickened, a tangled knot of fear and curiosity tightening in her chest. She hesitated, fingers trembling as she rose from the worn chair by the fireplace. The baby inside her shifted, a gentle reminder of the fragile life depending on her strength. Emma wrapped her shawl tightly around her shoulders and approached the door cautiously, the wooden floor creaking beneath her steps. Peering through the small window, she saw a man standing just beyond the threshold, his face shadowed by the brim of a weathered hat. There was a familiarity in his stance, a flicker of recognition that sent a shiver down her spine. It was someone from her past, a past she had tried to escape in these woods, in this cabin. The door swung open with a hesitant creak, and the man stepped inside, his eyes searching hers. "Emma," he said quietly, his voice a mixture of apology and urgency. "I've been looking for you." Memories surged unbidden. The arguments, the silence that followed, the night she left without a word. She swallowed hard, the pain of betrayal still raw beneath the surface. "Why are you here?" she asked, her voice steady but guarded. "I want to make things right," he replied, stepping further into the cabin. "I know I hurt you, but you can't run from everything. We need to face this. For the baby. For both of you. Emma's gaze hardened. The cabin's warmth seemed to falter, the shadows creeping closer as doubt and fear threatened to unravel the fragile peace she had found. This man represented the life she was trying to leave behind. The uncertainty, the pain, the broken promises. "I'm not the woman you left," she said firmly, standing tall despite the tremor in her hands. "I'm here now, building something new. You're not part of that." He stepped closer, desperation flickering in his eyes. "Please, Emma, let me help. We can figure this out together." But Emma shook her head, the strength she had drawn from the cabin's legacy anchoring her resolve. "I don't need saving. I need peace, and this is where I find it." The man's shoulders sagged, the fight draining from him. He looked around the cabin, the journals, the herbs, the quiet glow of the fire, and seemed to understand that this place was more than just shelter. It was a sanctuary, a refuge from the storm he had brought with him. Emma closed the distance between them, her voice soft but unwavering. "I'm not the person I was when you left. You can't take me back to that. You have to let me go." The silence that followed was heavy, filled with the weight of unspoken regrets. Then, slowly, the man nodded, stepping back toward the door. "I'm sorry, Emma, for everything." As he slipped out into the night, the cabin seemed to breathe a collective sigh of relief. Emma closed the door firmly behind him, the lock clicking into place like a shield against the past. She leaned against the door for a moment, the echoes of the confrontation settling into a quiet determination. The cabin's warmth returned, wrapping around her like a protective embrace. She was here to heal, to reclaim her life on her own terms. Sitting back by the fire, Emma opened one of the journals and traced the familiar script with her fingers. The stories of Lila, Marion, and Margaret, women who had faced their own storms and emerged stronger, filled her with renewed courage. She whispered a silent vow to the cabin and to herself, to hold fast to this new path, to honor the legacy of strength that had been entrusted to her, and to face whatever challenges lay ahead with the quiet power of the women who had come before. Outside, the wind stirred the trees gently, carrying away the remnants of the past night's storm. Inside, Emma felt the steady beat of new life within her, a promise of hope and resilience that would carry her forward. A low rumble rolled through the forest as dark clouds gathered overhead, blotting the sky in heavy gray. Emma sat by the cabin's window, watching the wind stir the last of the golden leaves from the trees, their brittle dance a prelude to the storm's arrival. The air was thick with anticipation, the scent of rain mingling with the earthy aroma of damp soil and wood smoke. She rested her hands on her rounded belly, feeling the gentle, steady movements of the baby within, a silent reassurance amid the growing tension outside. The cabin, once a quiet refuge, now seemed alive with urgency, its walls pulsating with the weight of what was to come. The first drops of rain tapped lightly against the glass, then intensified into a steady rhythm, a drumbeat heralding the storm's full fury. Emma moved to stoke the fire, coaxing the flames to life, their warm glow a fragile shield against the encroaching darkness. As the wind howled through the trees, rattling the shutters and sending a shiver through the cabin, Emma felt a tightening in her abdomen, sharp, insistent. Her breath caught. The baby was coming. She steadied herself against the wooden counter, the familiar rituals and teachings from the journals flooding her mind. The herbs she had gathered, sage, lavender, rosemary, were within reach. She lit a bundle, letting the fragrant smoke curl around her. filling the cabin with a calming presence. Drawing on the strength of the women before her, Emma began the labor alone, her voice steady as she whispered prayers and blessings learned from Lila and Marion. The circle of salt she had once drawn near the fireplace became a sacred boundary, a protective ring against the storm raging both outside and within. The pain came in waves, fierce and unrelenting, but Emma met each one with quiet determination. She breathed deeply, anchoring herself in the lessons passed down through generations, the healing rituals, the chants, the sacred connection to the earth and the cabin that cradled her. As the tempest raged beyond the walls, the cabin seemed to pulse with life. The fire flickered, but did not falter. The shadows danced, but never overwhelmed. Emma felt the presence of those who had come before. Lila's steady gaze, Marion's gentle hands, Margaret's unwavering strength, guiding her through the darkest hours. Hours stretched and folded into one another, the storm outside echoing the tumult within. Emma's body ached, but her spirit remained unbroken. She clung to the legacy she carried, a lineage of women who had faced birth and loss, hope and despair, and emerged transformed. In the quiet moments between contractions, she whispered to her unborn child promises of love and protection, of a world built on resilience and grace. The cabin held her, its wooden bones alive with the power of generations, its heart beating in time with her own. Finally, as the storm began to wane, Emma felt a shift, a release, a new beginning. With one last, fierce effort, she brought her daughter into the world, the cries of new life piercing the stillness. The cabin seemed to respond, the windows glowing softly, a warmth radiating through the beams, as if the very forest outside acknowledged the miracle within. Emma held her daughter close, tears streaming down her face, a mixture of exhaustion and overwhelming love. In that sacred space, surrounded by history and hope, Emma knew she was no longer alone. She was part of a lineage, a living testament to the strength and spirit of the women who had come before her. As the first light of dawn filtered through the storm clouds, the cabin stood steadfast, a refuge and a home, welcoming new life into its timeless embrace. The early morning light seeped gently through the cabin's windows, casting a soft glow over the worn wooden floor and the small bundle cradled in Emma's arms. Her daughter, swaddled in a hand-knit blanket, slept peacefully, her tiny chest rising and falling in slow, steady breaths. Emma's heart swelled with a quiet joy, the exhaustion of labor giving way to a profound sense of love and new beginnings. She looked around the cabin, now alive with a warmth that seemed to pulse from within its very walls. The fire crackled softly in the hearth, casting flickering shadows that danced like gentle spirits welcoming the newborn into their midst. Outside, the forest stirred with the fresh breath of dawn, the leaves glistening with dew, and the air filled with the soft chorus of birdsong. Emma traced her fingers over the smooth wood of the cradle, feeling the weight of history and hope intertwined. The cabin had not only sheltered her, but had transformed her, weaving her story into the fabric of generations of women who had come before. She was no longer alone. She was part of a lineage, a living thread in a tapestry of resilience and love. As she settled into the quiet rhythms of motherhood, Emma felt the presence of her ancestors surrounding her. Lila's courage, Marion's wisdom, Margaret's steadfast strength, all guiding her through the tender, uncharted days ahead. The journals and letters she had discovered now served as both compass and comfort, a reminder that the path she walked was shared by women who had faced their own trials and emerged stronger. One afternoon, as the sun filtered through the canopy, Emma stepped outside with her daughter nestled close. The forest seemed to respond to the new life, the earth beneath her feet soft and welcoming. She noticed tiny seedlings pushing through the leaf litter, fresh green shoots reaching toward the light, a silent celebration of beginnings. Back inside, Emma began to write in the journal her grandmother had gifted her, her pen flowing freely as she chronicled her journey, the fears, the triumphs, the quiet moments of grace. She wrote not just for herself, but for her daughter, for the women who would come after, and for the cabin that had become a sanctuary for them all. The days passed in a gentle rhythm, punctuated by the soft coos of her baby and the rustling whispers of the forest outside. Emma found strength in the simple acts of caregiving and creation, weaving her own legacy into the ongoing story of the cabin and its keepers. Yet, the peace was not without challenge. Word had reached the nearby town of the cabin's occupant, and one afternoon, unexpected visitors arrived. Relatives who questioned Emma's claim to the property, their voices sharp with skepticism and entitlement. They sought to dismantle the sanctuary she had fought so hard to claim. Emma stood firm, her spirit fortified by the legacy she carried. The family lawyer, Mr. Harrington, arrived to support her, presenting the will and affirming her rightful ownership. The cousins' objections were dismissed, their petitions denied, and the cabin remained hers, a testament to the enduring strength of the women who had guarded it. As autumn deepened, the forest around the cabin blazed with fiery hues, and Emma felt a profound connection to the land and her lineage. With her daughter at her side, she embraced her role as the latest keeper of the sanctuary, a guardian of stories, strength, and love. She continued to write, to heal, and to nurture, knowing that the cabin would welcome the next generation as it had welcomed her. The legacy lived on in the laughter of children, the quiet prayers whispered by candlelight, and the unbreakable bond of women united across time. In the warmth of the cabin, surrounded by history and hope, Emma found not only refuge but purpose, a life transformed by the power of inheritance, love, and the unyielding spirit of those who had come before. The chill of early autumn wrapped around the cabin like a familiar shawl. The forest outside alive with the rustle of falling leaves and the crisp scent of earth preparing for winter's hush. Inside, Emma sat by the fire, her daughter nestled in a cradle woven from aged wood and soft blankets, her tiny breaths a steady rhythm in the quiet room. The journal lay open before Emma, its pages filled with inked memories and reflections, a tapestry woven from the voices of the past and the promise of the future. She dipped her pen into the inkwell, the nib scratching softly as she began to write, her thoughts flowing like a gentle stream. Days had passed since the visitors who had challenged her claim to the cabin, their voices fading into the distance, silenced by the steadfast words of the lawyer who had upheld the will. The cabin's ownership was hers, a birthright bestowed not by wealth or status, but by the enduring legacy of the women who had guarded its walls for generations. Emma paused, her eyes drifting to the window where golden light spilled through the branches, casting dancing patterns on the floor. The forest seemed to breathe alongside her, alive with stories whispered through the rustling leaves and the steady heartbeat of the earth. She wrote of the journey that had brought her here, from the fear and loneliness that once threatened to consume her, to the strength and peace she had found within these walls. The cabin was more than shelter. It was a living testament to resilience, a sanctuary where stories of hope and survival intertwined. Her daughter stirred softly, a small hand reaching upward, and Emma smiled, tracing the delicate fingers curled beneath the blanket. This child, born amidst the storm and cradled by the forest's embrace, was the newest thread in the fabric of the cabin's history. Emma's thoughts turned to the women whose lives had shaped this place. Their courage, their wisdom, their unyielding spirits. She felt their presence as a steady current beneath her skin, a lineage of strength flowing through her veins. As the fire flickered low, Emma closed the journal gently and rose, carrying her daughter to the window. Outside, the forest stretched vast and vibrant, a mosaic of amber and crimson leaves shimmering in the fading light. The cabin stood strong, its weathered boards glowing softly, a beacon of hope and continuity. She whispered a promise to the night, to protect this sanctuary, to honor the stories etched into its walls, and to nurture the legacy entrusted to her. The journey ahead was unknown, but Emma faced it with a heart fortified by love and the enduring power of those who had come before. In the stillness of the evening, with her daughter cradled close and the cabin alive with history and hope, Emma embraced her place in the unbroken chain of keepers. The story was hers now to tell, a living testament to the strength, resilience, and love woven through generations of women. And as the stars began to sparkle above the mountain trail, the cabin stood ready, welcoming the next chapter, the next generation, and the unending embrace of legacy and home.